Billy wants me to tutor his girlfriend. If Lisa doesn't pass her next history test, her parents are going to send her to private school.
Why won't you tutor Lisa, Mark?
She's a flake.
What do a secret nickname coined by NBC Brass, a record-breaking teenage director, and the first time a sitcom ever dared say condom on primetime TV, all have in common? They're just part of the wild lawsuits and all story behind one of the 80s most dramatic shows hiding in plain sight as a wholesome family comedy. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about the Hogan family. Fact 1. The show had 3 names and a lawsuit to prove it.
Just tell me what I can do to help. You're already doing it. You're hanging in there.
Most TV shows keep their name from the first episode to the last. The Hogan family had 3 different names over the course of its 6-year run, and a major legal battle was directly responsible for at least one of those changes. The show launched on NBC in March of 1986, simply as Valerie, built entirely around actress Valerie Harper, who had become a household name in the 1970s, playing Rhoda Morgenstern on The Mary Tyler Moore Show and her own spin-off series, Rhoda. The idea was simple. Valerie Harper gets a new hit show, her name goes on the title, and audiences follow. That plan worked well for the first 2 seasons. But behind the scenes, Harper and her husband, Tony Cacciotti, who served as a producer on the show, were pushing for a bigger salary and a larger share of future syndication profits. The network and production company, Lorimar, refused. After Harper and Cacciotti walked off set, Lorimar fired her outright, and her character, Valerie Hogan, was written out of the show by having her killed off in a car accident that happened off-screen between seasons. The show continued and was initially renamed Valerie's Family, with the subtitle The Hogans added to the main title. The hope was that Harper might eventually return, and using her name in the title kept that door open. But Harper sued over the continued use of her name, arguing it implied her involvement in a show she had been fired from. As the lawsuit moved forward through the courts, Lorimar and NBC decided it was easier to just remove her name entirely. By the summer of 1988, during reruns of the 3rd season, the show was quietly retitled once more as The Hogan Family, the name it would keep for the rest of its run. Fact 2. NBC Brass called it Throw Mama from the series.
It'll be like we're all on vacation.
I don't want to be on vacation. I want to be home.
Yeah.
When a beloved star gets publicly fired from her own show, the last thing you might expect is for the network's top executive to find humor in the situation. But that is exactly what happened at NBC in 1987. Brandon Tartikoff was the president of entertainment at NBC during this period and is widely considered one of the most influential television executives in the history of American broadcasting. He was known for his sharp instincts, his ability to develop hit shows, and also his sense of humor. In his memoir, Tartikoff revealed that after Valerie Harper was fired and the show's title was in the process of being changed, the staff at NBC privately started calling the show Throw Mama from the series. It was a play on the 1987 comedy film Throw Mama from the Train, which had just been released that same year. The joke was a darkly comic acknowledgement of what had just happened. The network and studio had, in effect, thrown the show's central figure right out of the title and the story altogether. Tartikoff was not entirely without sympathy for Harper's situation. He has been described in various accounts as uncomfortable with the public nature of the feud, and he reportedly disliked the ugly press coverage the dispute generated. But the nickname stuck among insiders, and it was candid enough that Tartikoff included it in his published writing. It is a small but telling detail that captures just how bizarre the whole situation felt to the people living through it. A show built to celebrate a woman's name was, within 2 seasons, doing everything it could to erase her from the title and the story entirely, and even the man running the network thought the whole thing was almost absurdly theatrical. Fact 3. The star was fired with 1 month to spare.
Yeah.
You still okay about me going to work at your school?
Yeah, I think it's great.
Most television productions operate on tight timelines, but the firing of Valerie Harper created a behind-the-scenes scramble that was genuinely extraordinary by any standard. The decision to remove Harper from the show came so late in the process that the writers and producers had almost no time to rebuild the entire premise of the series before new episodes were due to air. Harper and her husband, Tony Cacciati, who was a supervising producer on the show, had walked off the set during a salary dispute in the spring of 1987. Negotiations went back and forth for weeks, and the situation became increasingly public. When Lorimar finally made the decision to fire Harper, the announcement came just a little over 1 month before the third season was scheduled to begin airing on NBC. That left the writing staff in a genuinely difficult position. They had scripts already developed that featured Valerie Harper as the central character. All of that work had to be thrown out. The producers then had to bring in a completely new character, secure a new actress to play her, and reshoot or rework the entire third season premiere in a way that explained the sudden and jarring change to the audience. Sandy Duncan was cast as Sandy Hogan, the boy's aunt who moves in to help the family following the off-screen death of Valerie's character. The third season premiere was hastily rewritten and shot to introduce this new storyline. Despite all the chaos happening in the background, the revised version of the show debuted in September of 1987, following the popular NBC sitcom ALF in the Monday night lineup, and it actually pulled in strong ratings right out of the gate. Fact 4. Jason Bateman became the DGA's youngest director ever.
I just read your arrest report at the front desk. What the hell is going on?
Sandy, please, I can explain everything.
Jason Bateman spent the entire 6-season run of the Hogan Family playing David Hogan, the eldest of the 3 brothers at the center of the show. He joined the cast as a teenager and stayed through to the very end. But acting was not the only thing Bateman was doing behind the scenes. While still a cast member and a working teenager, Bateman decided he wanted to try his hand at directing. The production company allowed him to step behind the camera, and he ended up directing 3 episodes of the series during its run. His first directorial effort on the show was the season 5 episode titled Educating Rita. By the time he directed those episodes, Bateman was 18 years old, and that age turned out to be historically significant. The Directors Guild of America, often referred to as the DGA, is the professional organization that represents directors working in film and television in the United States. When Bateman completed his directorial work on the Hogan Family at age 18, he became the youngest person ever to be admitted as a director into the DGA. It was a record that went largely unnoticed by the general public at the time, buried beneath the much bigger headlines about Valerie Harper's lawsuit and Sandy Duncan's arrival. But it was a genuine milestone for Bateman, and in hindsight, it was an early signal of the directing career he would eventually build. Decades later, he would go on to win a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Directing for a Drama Series for his work on the Netflix crime drama Ozark. Fact 5. The first condom ever said on primetime TV.
Some protection. You know, condoms.
By myself?
Before cable television made almost anything possible, the major broadcast networks operated under a very cautious set of standards about what could be said or shown during primetime hours. In 1987, the word condom was simply not something that appeared in a primetime American sitcom. That changed on February 7th of that year, when the Hogan Family aired a second season episode called Bad Timing. In the episode, the character of David Hogan, played by Jason Bateman, reconnects with a former girlfriend who is visiting the family. The 2 teenagers consider having sex, and the episode follows their conversation honestly, with the word condom used directly during the discussion. It was the first documented use of that word in a primetime television program in the United States. NBC did not let the episode go out quietly. The network issued parental advisory warnings in advertisements leading up to the broadcast and placed a specific notice before the episode aired, telling parents they may want to watch it together with their children. The episode's subject matter was controversial enough that some of NBC's local affiliate stations chose not to air it during prime time at all. Some moved it to a later hour, and others refused to broadcast it entirely. Despite, or perhaps partly because of, all that attention, the episode was well received by health educators and parents groups who felt the show handled the topic responsibly. The production company later released the episode on home video, specifically so that teachers and health educators could use it as a resource for classroom discussions about safe sex. In the end, David and his girlfriend decide not to have sex, making the episode's message one of thoughtful restraint rather than anything scandalous. Fact 6, Harper won. $1.8, $2 million, then gave it away.
I want to be part of this family, but you have to let me. Don't shut me out. Just try and trust me a little.
When Valerie Harper took Lorimar to court for firing her, the lawsuit became one of the most closely watched legal battles in television history at the time. Stars had walked off sets before, but it was genuinely rare for a performer with their name in the show's title to fight back in court and actually win. The trial concluded on September 16, 1988. Harper and her husband, Tony Cacciati, had brought claims against both NBC and Lorimar, but the NBC portion of the case was dismissed. The jury, however, found that Lorimar had wrongfully terminated Harper's contract. The damages awarded were $1.82 million, plus a 12.5% share of the show's ongoing profits going forward. It was a significant victory both financially and symbolically, coming at a time when performers rarely had this kind of leverage against studios. What happened next was even more unexpected. Harper and Cacciati donated the full damages award to various charities. They did not keep the money. The 12.5% profit participation was a separate matter and unrelated to the charitable donation, but the decision to give away the lump sum payout spoke to how Harper and her husband approached the case. By most accounts, the lawsuit was never primarily about the money for Harper. It was about what she felt was a wrongful firing, about being publicly characterized as difficult and unprofessional, and about what she saw as a fundamental breach of the trust and contract she had with the production company that had originally hired her to build an entire show around her name. Fact 7. The scandal accidentally boosted the ratings.
You seem like a kind and reasonable man.
Leslie, am I a kind and reasonable man?
It is one of the more counterintuitive things that can happen in television. A show that fired its lead actress was renamed, brought in a replacement cast member, and became the subject of an ongoing legal dispute should not, by any reasonable logic, become more popular because of all that chaos. And yet that is essentially what happened with the Hogan Family during its third and fourth seasons. The firing of Harper and the hiring of Sandy Duncan became enormous news in the entertainment press. Celebrity gossip and entertainment programming in the late 1980s had a large and eager audience, and the behind-the-scenes drama at this NBC sitcom played out publicly for months. Audiences who might otherwise never have tuned in became curious about what the show looked like without its original star and about whether the replacement would work. That curiosity translated directly into viewership. The series, which had been building an audience modestly during its first 2 seasons, saw a significant ratings jump after the scandal broke. For the 1987 to 1989 period, the show consistently placed within the top 30 most watched programs on American television. Television analysts and writers covering the industry at the time attributed a meaningful portion of that ratings increase to the sheer volume of press coverage and public interest generated by the Harper situation. The show had effectively been given a large and involuntary publicity campaign, and it worked. The audience that tuned in out of curiosity largely stuck around, giving the retitled series a stability it might not have found otherwise. Fact 8. The house sets were shared with other shows.
We survived.
Look, we really don't need any cheerleading right now.
When most viewers watched the Hogan Family at home on Monday nights, they were looking at a living room, a kitchen, and a family home that felt specific to the Hogans. What they did not know is that those same interiors were being used for entirely different fictional families in other shows airing on different networks. The Hogan Family was produced by Miller Boyett Productions, the same production company behind some of the most successful American sitcoms of the 1980s and 90s. Because Miller Boyett operated a broad roster of shows simultaneously, it was common practice for them to share physical production resources across their various projects. The standing interior sets built for the Hogan Family, including the domestic spaces that formed the backbone of the show's visual identity, were reused by the same production company on both Family Matters, which premiered in 1989, and Step by Step, which debuted in 1991. Family Matters aired on ABC and ran for 9 seasons. Step by Step, also on ABC, ran for 7. Both were produced by Miller Boyett. To viewers watching those shows, the sets appeared to belong entirely to the Winslow family or the Lambert Foster family, respectively. But behind the scenes, the physical walls, counters, stairs, and rooms were the same ones that had previously housed the Hogans. This kind of set sharing was an economical and practical reality of television production, particularly when a single production company was running multiple shows at the same time under one roof. Fact 9. Roseanne Barr mocked the situation on her own show.
Also wondering how come nobody noticed, and I was saying it in the paper. I mean, I guess you say it wherever you're going to say it, but here's in this big magazine and nobody ever said anything.
The firing of Valerie Harper became so well known within the entertainment industry that it eventually served as a punchline in a completely different workplace dispute on a completely different television series. The person doing the joking was Roseanne Barr, and the joke landed because everyone in the business understood the reference immediately. In 1988, Barr found herself in a serious creative dispute with Matt Williams, one of the co-creators and producers of her show Roseanne, which had just premiered on ABC and was becoming a runaway hit. The disagreement was essentially a power struggle over who had final control of the show's creative direction. Barr won the fight decisively. Williams was removed from the show before the end of its first season, and Barr went on to remain the central creative force behind Roseanne for its entire original run. But the parallel to what had happened with Harper was not lost on Barr. Harper had been the title character of her own show and had lost her creative dispute, ending up fired. Barr was the title character of her show and had won. To acknowledge the contrast in a way that was pointed but also self-aware, Barr reportedly changed the nameplate on her dressing room door to read Sandy Duncan. Sandy Duncan, of course, was the actress who had been brought in to replace Harper on the renamed Hogan Family. The joke was a very specific piece of insider humor that required knowing exactly what had happened to Harper to fully land. For anyone in the television industry at the time, it landed perfectly. Fact 10. A McDonald's-sponsored house fire episode.
Well, I hope you're happy.
Thank you. I hope you're happy too.
In the third season of the show, the Hogan family experienced a house fire that caused major damage to their home. The episode, titled Burned Out, aired on October 5, 1987, and was one of the more emotionally significant installments of the entire series. It also had a sponsor relationship that was unusual even by the standards of commercial television at the time. The fire in the episode was not simulated with clever camera angles or minor prop damage. The production actually set fire to and damaged the standing interior set that had been used for the show's domestic scenes. This was a costly thing to do, and it required the set to be partially rebuilt afterward. McDonald's agreed to finance the expenses involved in actually damaging the set as part of a commercial sponsorship arrangement for that specific episode. In exchange, McDonald's received advertising time during the broadcast, and the commercials that aired that evening were specifically themed around fire safety, tying directly into the subject matter of the episode itself. The storyline itself was also emotionally weighted in a way that went beyond a typical house fire premise. By the time this episode aired, Sandy Duncan had already replaced Valerie Harper, and the Hogan family was still dealing with the grief of losing their mother and wife. When the fire destroys keepsakes and photographs in the attic, including a charred frame photo of Valerie that David finds in his room, the episode connects the physical destruction to the emotional loss the family has been carrying. The McDonald's sponsorship added a layer of commercial pragmatism to what was otherwise one of the show's more heartfelt hours. Fact 11. The cast member who wrote his own death.
Really?
Really?
Oh, David, I knew I could trust you. Tell me, was it difficult for you to do?
Television shows that deal with serious subjects like terminal illness usually rely on their regular writing staff to craft those stories from the outside looking in. What happened on the Hogan Family in its final season was something different and considerably more personal. Tom Hodges played a recurring character named Rich, who was introduced as the best friend of David Hogan. Rich appeared throughout several seasons of the series, known for his big personality and for calling David by the nickname Hoagie. He was a popular supporting presence on the show. After a one-year absence from the series, Hodges returned for what would be his final appearance, and the episode centered on the revelation that Rich was dying of complications from AIDS. According to documented accounts of the episode's production, Hodges himself co-wrote the script. He was directly involved in shaping how his character would face this diagnosis, how the people around him would respond, and how the story would end. The episode was also notable for not specifying how Rich had contracted HIV, which was a deliberate creative choice. By 1990, many television AIDS storylines relied on the blood transfusion explanation as a way of signaling to audiences that the character had contracted the virus through no personal choices of their own. The Hogan Family episode chose not to include that explanation, leaving the question open in a way that was, for its time and for a family sitcom, notably matter-of-fact. Fact 12. The AIDS episode aired on World AIDS Day.
This time, please keep remembering that you, Lila, and Rance were once lovers.
Yeah.
The episode in which Rich reveals he is dying of AIDS was not scheduled randomly. It aired on December 1st, 1990, which is World AIDS Day. Whether this was a deliberate scheduling decision or a coincidence that the production team recognized and leaned into is not entirely clear from available records, but the timing was acknowledged, and the episode was treated with a level of ceremony that extended beyond the show's standard format. The closing credits of that episode did not run over the show's regular theme song. Instead, the production replaced the usual closing music with Dionne Warwick's charity single, That's What Friends Are For. That song had been released in 1985 specifically as a fundraiser for AIDS research and awareness, and it had reached #1 on the Billboard charts in 1986, the same year the Hogan Family first premiered under the title Valerie. The use of that song over frozen clips of Rich from earlier episodes gave the episode a sense of finality that felt intentional and sincere. The episode is also notable because it was the last new episode to air before CBS canceled the show in December of that same year. The network had picked up the show for a final 6th season after NBC dropped it, but ratings on CBS were poor, and the series was canceled after 13 episodes of the season had been produced. Several of those episodes had not yet aired when the cancellation was announced. Fact 13. Roberta Flack's theme almost became a single.
I'd like to, like permission to have an extra job. And they said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to sing and play in a club. And they said, oh.
The theme song for the Hogan Family, which played over the opening credits for all 6 seasons of the show, was a song called Together Through the Years. It was composed by Charles Fox, with lyrics written by Stephen Geyer, and performed by Grammy-winning artist Roberta Flack. Fox had previously written theme music for some of television's biggest shows, including Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and The Love Boat, and the connection to Flack came through his earlier work. Fox had co-written the song Killing Me Softly with his song, which Flack had released back in 1973 and turned into one of the defining recordings of her career. Together Through the Years was written specifically for the show and with Flack in mind from the very beginning. Geyer, the lyricist, later recalled in an interview that both Valerie Harper and Roberta Flack were present in the recording studio on the day the track was recorded, and that both were generous and enthusiastic about the work. According to Geyer, Flack was genuinely excited about the song and was very keen on releasing it as a commercial single. The writers and producers shared that enthusiasm and hoped it would happen. Unfortunately, the release never came together for reasons that were not fully explained publicly. Geyer noted that it was disappointing but understandable that the single never materialized. The song remained exclusively a television theme, never released as a standalone recording. It became familiar to viewers throughout the late 1980s, but never had the commercial life beyond the show that everyone involved had apparently hoped for. Fact 14. Harper proved a title character was replaceable for all of TV.
She's not bad. And you are crazy.
Before 1987, the unspoken rule in American television was that if a show was built around a specific star, especially one whose name was in the title, that star was essentially irreplaceable. The show was them. Without them, there was no show. Valerie Harper's firing did not just challenge that assumption, it demolished it, and the television industry never quite went back to the way it was before. Harper won her lawsuit against Lorimar, and the financial outcome was a real victory for her. But the broader lesson that producers and network executives took from the whole episode was something different and arguably more troubling for performers. The show had survived. Not only had it survived, it had continued to draw solid ratings after Harper was gone. The public had not abandoned the Hogans just because Valerie Harper was no longer among them. Sandy Duncan had stepped in, the premise had been adjusted, and the audience had largely stayed. That precedent was noted and remembered. In the years that followed, network executives and studio producers applied the same logic to other high-profile departures. When David Caruso left NYYPD Blue after a single breakout season, the show continued for another 11 years. When Charlie Sheen was fired from 2.5 Men, the production brought in a different lead and kept going. When Kevin Spacey was removed from House of Cards, the remaining cast carried the show to a conclusion without him. More recently, when Roseanne Barr was fired from the revival of Roseanne, the show was retitled The Connors, and her character was killed off, a direct echo of what happened to Valerie Harper's character more than 30 years earlier. Each of those decisions was made against the backdrop of a reality that the Hogan family helped establish. The name above the title is not always the show. Fact 15. The final episodes were burned off 7 months late.
Aren't you sweet? Isn't she sweet? My own daughter-in-law standing here and takes a total stranger to offer me a little cake and coffee.
When a television network cancels a show, it usually has a certain number of already produced episodes sitting in storage that still need to air. What it decides to do with those episodes says a lot about how much the network values the series and its remaining audience. In the case of the Hogan family, the answer was to air them quietly, in the middle of summer, as quickly as possible. CBS had picked up the show for a 6th and final season after NBC dropped it in 1990. The CBS season premiered in September of that year, but ratings were poor from the start, and the network canceled the show in December of 1990 after only 9 of the 13 produced episodes had aired. That left 4 completed episodes sitting on the shelf, including a Christmas-themed episode. Those 4 remaining episodes did not air until July of 1991, roughly 7 months after the show had been canceled. CBS aired them in rapid succession, sometimes scheduling them more than once a week, in what is commonly described in the television industry as burning off the remaining inventory. The final episode to air was the Christmas episode, which ended up airing in July, well out of season and with almost no fanfare. There was no farewell special, no acknowledgement of the show's 6-year run, and no attempt to give the audience a proper ending. The Hogan Family simply aired its last episode on a summer night and disappeared from the schedule, closing out one of the stranger production histories in American sitcom television.